It was already a time when, before the Redux, I thought about these things. I really got used to the fact that it was not really happening again in the sphere of thoughts. I was still daydreaming, the same quantity as before, but the dreams were different. Partly because I already exhausted the subjects I thought of the time before the Redux. There would, for instance, be little point for me in daydreaming of the suicide attempt that I would talk to the girl out of, when I already fully analyzed the matter of the first time. Sure, I remembered all it and I used the idea, but just for a few moments. The same with Chieka. There was nothing new in Chieka, and I ended up thinking about Miss Sae. Not only because she was my type now, but also because Chieka was already dreamed out. In these days, it was much more the incident with Akane that got me thinking. Come to think of it, I really once during the Christmas holidays thought of what would happen if I somehow saw her. How would it change my views, and what impact it would have on me? What thoughts would go through my head? The fact of seeing Akane before the scheduled time in a way made an impression on me. In the way that I didn't really know whether there was going to be even more surprises. I understood it, if that was what the situation was trying to tell me. I understood the consequences of the Redux were such as I never could have possibly imagined. I thought I had it all sorted out, but I didn't. I thought I was ready, but I wasn't. Of course, I have to admit that those thoughts came to me because of what happened. I didn't really expect to see Akane. Maybe I would suffer the same effect when seeing Hikaru. But I never thought of that because at that, or rather at this time, Hikaru didn't live in this city. I guess it was hard to define what I felt when I saw Akane. I have loved her. And it would be so much different if Redux happened earlier, when she still was my girlfriend. I would still love her. And it was hard to imagine what I would do and how I would react if I saw her. Would I try to make her my girlfriend? I would know what she liked. I would know how to make her happy. And if I made her my girlfriend earlier, how would I feel when I would touch her young body? I'd be still too young. It was hard to imagine how and what I would feel. The most complicated thing would be that I would really care for her. It would be very hard for me to, for instance, refrain from helping her with everything. I would do anything for her. But at that stage of the relationship, it would not be normal, because officially I wouldn't know her. Sometimes, when I felt very desperate, when all the things that happened to me were too much for me to handle, I imagined that I was in a kind of situation where I could officially give in and be cared for. For instance, I dreamed of having an accident when I would be in the hospital and wouldn't have to do anything, even the important things. It was for me the only way of escaping all the troubles I encountered. Sometimes, when a tough test would be around the corner, I would imagine being very sick. I wouldn't have to study for it. I wouldn't have to, for instance, have to solve a difficult situation, or I could just plain escape everything. I would be in the hospital and that would be that. Often I use this dream concept to increase my value. If I would be on the verge of death, naturally everyone would realize that nothing was more important than my health. All of a sudden, nothing mattered. All of a sudden, everyone was nice to me. It was a shame, really, that one had to think in such extremes. Sometimes I really needed a confirmation of that I am valuable to them. After the Redux, I hardly dreamed of becoming sick. I did not need it, and quite honestly, I disrespected people who did not know they were just as special as anyone else. However, I knew how that felt. I too was one of them, of a certain point. At a certain point. However, now I was extremely against any such sentiments. I guess I had so much problems with myself. I really can't it really is late. I guess I had so much problem with myself. I really can remember it quite well, and I was so happy when I found out I could win over any such feelings that I never again wanted to meet those feelings again. A typical example, which also affected me, was that I felt incredibly inferior to my affection Miori. Not that I would see her unattainable or godlike, rather I saw myself being the low one, someone not worthy living on the same planet as she. I suffered a lot because of this. I hardly dared to make any moves on her, and although I actually managed to dance with her, I never really saw myself as being worthy of her. And you never moved your ass. The week I had before me now was going to be quite relaxing. Almost our whole class went to a trip to the Kisukawa mountain range to see some historical temples. It was going to be for 3 days. I did not sign up because the trip cost too much money for me. Really? Because from what I've heard, you are pretty... Well, you were doing pretty good with betting, right? Some other people stayed too. Nami, Seto, and Yan. We hoped we wouldn't have to go to school since the class was gone, but our teacher was quick to make 2 pairs from us. Me and Nami, and Seto and with Yan. I didn't protest really. I know it would have been much more fun with Seto or Yan than it would be with Nami, but I really got along very nicely with Nami, so I didn't mind. In any case, I always thought Nami was not in my league, so to say. So I never even attempt to look good through my looks or actions when I was with her. But for a normal being together, Nami was very nice. Regrettably, our teacher told us to be with 2C, that was Kotone's class. And I wasn't very eager to see her because I was in a real difficult position. I could still feel the embarrassment of having to pass on the letter of rejection to Mori, and the fact that I passed her that time in the rain on my bicycle even added more confusion. What? And that is before the Redux, right? I didn't know whether... well, so I was wrong with the betting thing. Well, whatever. I didn't know whether she recognized me, and I tried to get it quickly out of my head. But that wasn't too easy with the comic week being in her class. Although it would be interesting to see what she's like. Maybe Mori would be interested. But maybe not. I think he had his share with her. That time we spent with Stussy, I learned quite a lot about Nami. She was easily the most popular from our group, but that time spent together with her brought me a lot closer to her than originally. Usually she was more friends with Rin or Suzy, and although we had some conversations before, only now I began to think of her differently than of the popular one. One morning it was even raining, and as I was walking down the street towards the school, Nami caught up with me, and since she didn't have an umbrella, she walked under mine. Without any thinking, she just took my arm, and before I knew it, we walked arm in arm. Of course, this was really not anything that special, since we were classmates, and Nami was very spontaneous in these things. Really, walking with Nami that one morning felt absolutely natural. Since Seto and Yan got to be in 2A's class, we had different timetables and met with them only at the start and during the big break. We talked about how it is in those classes. Somehow I envied Seto and Yan because they were 2 guys. They had to have lots of fun. Instead of that, when our class left for the trip and I was in to see with Nami, I could concentrate on other things. I used the time to get organized at home and made long-term plans for me. Kotone wasn't a problem for me. I even talked to her for some time on a one break. And I really like her ethics teacher. I even took part in the discussion she started about animal rights. I remembered her from before the Redux, yet she never taught our class. She was really nice, open to alternative thoughts. There were so many things I would have liked to change and I would have liked to be. I seriously can't sit in any comfortable position right now. And that's annoying. Sure, we had some activities in various lessons, but none of them was really global, reaching the whole school. I would also have liked the class photo to be more important than it was. After all, it was our only memory, the only 4 photos from each year where we actually were all together. We did not make too many pictures of ourselves while at various parties or trips. That's why the school photo was so important, at least to me, later on. The good thing about the class photo was that we had to do it during a lesson. Mostly it would be an easy one, but nevertheless it was free time. We could gather in gym where there would be a small board with our class name and year on it, and we would assemble in 2 rows. The first row either sitting to be lower or the second row standing on a bench so it would be higher. Often the tall people would be put in the back. I always stood next to Mori, even though I didn't really care too much about the photograph. The crucial thing was not to look too stupid or anything when the trigger of the camera went off. Always look right into the lens, try not to breathe. There, a blinding flash and you are photographed. I have to admit, the 1B photograph was not too good for me. I was just going to say something to Mori and the camera caught me with a strange smile. Not that others would look better. Yoshiko's eyes were closed and San was looking the other way. The worst thing was that naturally there was no second photo. It could have gotten that, but that meant paying more, which none of us wanted. I can very well recall how it was that time when we were going to make the class photo for 2B. We were very lucky that none of our classmates were sick when I was, as I remember, unique as 1B, 3B and 4B. We always had someone sick who couldn't attend. It wasn't tragic, fun because no picture was still better than an awful picture, which some people managed to have of themselves on those photos. Now that I think of it, it was a pity. It would have been a nice documentation of how we changed over the 4 years. To that day, I can remember it being a Friday. We were called into the gym by our class teacher. She told us that we'll be doing the photo today, but never said which lesson. I guess she couldn't know because the other classes had their photo sessions too, and it was a matter of coordinating everything. There was no nervousness as we went down the halls into the gym. It was a normal thing, nothing special. In fact, some people even questioned the whole photo thing, because no one really asked whether we wanted a class photo. It was a sad thing and our parents had to pay for it. That day it was the bench system. First row was formed from girls, and the back row, namely us. We were standing on 3 small but long benches, so we were above the girls' heads. I never understood just why some girls in the rush of the moment tried to fix their hair a bit. What did it matter? Besides, when I thought about it, we were better off looking natural. 99% of all the time spent together, we were not wearing any special clothes or did not make any special efforts to look extraordinary nice. Just plain, normal. I thought the photo should be like that. Of course, none of our girls really prepared herself for the photo. Even if them used lipstick or makeup, she would be looked very strangely upon just what is that for? No, that was really not our class. Akari would hold the board with the year and class name, and we were just set to go. Flash! And it was done. So quick. We could now go back to our class. The photographer still asked whether we wanted a second photo, but no one wanted one. And so it ended. We were led back to the class by our teacher, where she continued to lesson. It was such a non-special thing for us that we didn't even talk about it more during our break. When we walked the school corridors, it was just one of those things that did not get too much attention from anyone. I knew that the day of the class photo was nearing, and I felt more and more sorry that there will not be more to it. I would have loved the class photo to gain on importance. And with every day being closer to our photo day, inside me grew a plan, a wish, whatever it was, to try at least to get everyone to be a little more cautious about the photo. I knew I had very good chance of presenting my idea to the class at the class meeting after school. It was a compulsory thing every few months, where our class teacher discussed important issues with us. The problem was that by that time school was already out and everyone wanted to go home. We would most quickly agree and never take the time to think about the matters thoroughly. Maybe it was wrong to have class meetings after school, but coming to school earlier was also a bad option. Well, that's the worst option. Ever since the Redux, however, I really enjoyed these meetings. I realized the teacher wanted our opinions and we could really make a difference in several parts of our school life. And even with the fact that most of us would love to dust off immediately, the class meeting after school, which was something of a week before the photo session, was really my best chance to convince or inspire anything. I knew I had to be brief and that I had to impress them. And to do this, I had to rely on my charisma. I now most definitely had, and the respect I enjoyed with them. And so the day arrived, where the class lesson took place. We discussed several issues, and as hard as I tried, I could not find a good time to bring forth the thoughts I had about the class photo. The problem was, the teacher never brought it up. The only thing she managed to say was that we should not forget that the photo would be taken on that day and nothing more. How was I supposed to start a discussion about such a sensitive issue? It would make me seem, I don't know, it would definitely be strange, me, talking about the class photo in such a sentimental way. I just didn't know if all my classmates would understand what I was trying to achieve. So at the end, I decided not to tell. Really, the situation was not there. Again, holding back. That guy is annoying. Seriously. If you experience the Redux, then do the things the way you wanted to. Seriously. So that was all that was left from my dreams the day before. I wished I could persuade them into arranging us into a girl power pattern, take more pictures. I even thought that at the end I could get our group, as one might call it, me, Mori, Sanji, Nami, Rin, Tomomi, Yoshiko and Kumi, on one photo. I guess there was nothing I could do. Of course I could still hope that everything would take an unexpected twist at the actual scene, but I think that happened to me often enough. This time there would be no surprises for sure. I knew I was probably right about that. And really, there were no surprises. Everything wrapped up just like I had it in my memory. The only thing that was different was that when we went down the hall, I wasn't talking to Mori like usual, but I silently went next to Yoshiko. She noticed my mood. I was really sad from all this. She never asked me anything for. It would be a little unusual, even for friends like us. Although I didn't want Yoshiko to feel my bad mood, I was glad that at least one person knew that something was wrong with me, but I didn't like the way the photo was going to be taken. Of course, Yoshiko never could guess that my mood was because of the photo. That was clear for me. Everything was a pity for me that day. That was the first time I felt that I couldn't do anything to change what had happened. Yeah, right. And the first time I actually failed to do something. That's not the first time. And the first time that nothing special happened by itself. No surprise. I knew this day had to come one day. Its impact on me wasn't great, because I did expect it to happen sometime, but it was the feeling of being helpless that was getting me down so much. Sometimes even my charisma would be enough, and even though I could blame it on my shyness that I did not speak at the class meeting, the situation just wasn't right. Had I spoken in whichever manner, it would create a difficult situation for me and my classmates. Nothing would ever be the same again. I realized this in these days. The school year was about to end. It was already quite warm outside. It was May. One morning, when I woke up, I felt so strange. It was like nothing. Absolutely nothing. I didn't know why I should get up, why I should go to school, and what is everything for. A really terribly depressing thought. Luckily, it went away in a few minutes. But emptiness I had to deal with during those minutes was crushing. Although the sun was shining now, I was in a very dark mood. I just had to take a look at my situation. Everything was slipping away between my fingers. Summer holidays were nearing, and then another year. Of what? What was I to do that year? What purpose did it serve that I now lived through those periods again? Honestly, what have I gained? Only money. I felt as devastated as before from my own indecisive personality. I felt that I really never used my full potential. What for? What was the use of it? Should I use it to get Miori? Yes. I couldn't stand to think about the disgusting thing like that. Anything physical between me and Miori, or rather between me and all the girls around me. I couldn't start a conversation I would like with anyone, the people from my class. I had to constantly talk about something very statistical and neutral, like weather and the latest in sports. I liked to take part in discussions in class with the teacher because there I could present my thoughts in a respectful environment. It was these discussions that earned me respect from my class. Often we would end in a friendly analysis, me and the teacher, and the class would just listen. At first I liked that I impressed everyone, but even though everyone was still impressed, I felt nothing. It was too bad I had no one I could talk to. I tried, I really did. Sometimes I would catch one of our girls in a thinking mood, and they were very happy to tell me what was going on. But I saw from what they told me that was a problem only they could solve. Their personalities had yet to complete, and they would have to find answers for themselves. Often I thought about what I could say to them, but I knew they would not understand my advice, because they have not had figured out the basics, so to say. There was no universal way of doing it, but one day they would discover and develop their personality to such an extent that it would be sufficient to understand most of the things. I really hated to use the word grow up. I was just a bit afraid that I would get used to their faults and become pulled into their world. I tried to prevent that by watching TV and always reminding myself of who I really was. I took over some chores at home. I now regularly cleaned up and washed the dishes to help my parents out. Sometimes, but not too often, I would challenge them into a discussion, and this way I tried to learn more about their opinions. The friendship with Mori didn't go too well either. It was not in any danger, no, but it was not nearly as intensive as before the Redux. But what was I supposed to do? You're supposed to move your ass to Mori. I don't care what you think, you should move. All the conversations we had that revealed something from the other's life were useless for me. I already knew Mori, and everything he said was just repeating old lines. And I have heard so many things I already knew that I got tired of just about everything. It was really hard to stay motivated for anything. Not even the girls could be a motivation now. Before I could tell myself that I could change the course of things, make it war between a girl and myself, but ever since the peek in the girl's changing room unclouded my vision, there was no motivation. I could only wait. Maybe the summer holidays would bring peace into my life. I remember we met during the summer holidays, but mostly for outdoor activities. I would survive that, I guess. The worst thing were the indoor getting-togethers where we would watch TV or play some games, or maybe just hang around and eat things. And there were quite a few birthdays to come. We would celebrate each of them. Not a great prospect, but given the fact that apart from these meetings I would be totally alone, it was a nice thought. I just had to wait a few more weeks. May 4th, the day of the Redux, was also near. I knew nothing was going to happen, and nothing did. I sighed. Today I was at school, but I hardly remember it. I was absent-mindedly thinking about all those things. The next few days I was thinking even more.